Daily Tech News Show is made possible by you listening right now. Thank you, Kelly Cook, Jeff Wilkes, Pele Glendale, and brand new patrons, TMS Mashups, Tim and Peter. 3 new patrons. On this episode of DTNS, Patrick Beja gives the French perspective on France's arrest of Telegram's CEO. Plod is the latest effort to get you to wear AI around your neck. And Scott Johnson weighs in on Procreate's promise not to use generative AI for art. And that person named art. This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, August 28th, 2024 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
In Salt Lake City, I'm Scott Johnson.
I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
And in celebration of the beginning of the Paralympics in Paris, we have Patrick Beja joining us a little later in the show. We recorded an interview with him earlier today, sadly, minutes before the flyover happened.
Oh, man.
So the flyover
Why is that sadly?
Because it would have looked so cool. He was out on his terrace.
You would have
seen him. It would have been able to see him. Yeah. But sadly, no. In the meantime...
Well, you know what's good for that? AI.
And the quick hits.
Google first showed off a preview of Gems, which are custom versions of Gemini, back at I/O 2024. That was in May. Now it's rolling out Gems and Imagen 3 to advanced subscribers. Gems let you save detailed sets of instructions that you don't have to explain repeatedly when you're going to use the same ones over and over at a later time, but they can be edited over time. Gems will live in the Gemini side panel.
A YouTube channel called N Beats published a video 4 years ago called Sound to Remove Water from Phone Speaker, parentheses, guaranteed. As sometimes happens on the internet, it recently gained a lot more attention than it has had since it was published 4 years ago. And the theory is plausible. A low, loud tone from a speaker creates enough air motion to push out water. The Apple Watch uses a similar principle to push out water. iFixit put it to the test with 4 wet phones and saw some water come out of the speakers of each one of them. It doesn't do anything for water in other parts of the phone, though.
I use that feature on my Apple Watch all the time. The Verge's Victoria Song has a review of bone conduction headphones from Shokz called the Open Run Pro 2. They're meant for people who don't want earbuds in their ear canal, but they want decent sound, especially bass, and that used to be a problem with bone conduction headsets. The Open Run Pro 2s use dedicated air conduction speakers specifically for bass, with thin air hooks connected to a thin neck band. Shokz claims 12 hours of battery life, pretty good. And the Open Run Pro headphones are now available for $180.
GameStop posted on X that new retro GameStops are now spawning near you with a link to a store locator. An image in the post shows logos from multiple retro game consoles, including Xbox 360, GameCube, Sega Genesis, the PS Vita, pretty much all the big names you'd expect. The store locator page also includes listings for old games and old consoles that you can buy online and have delivered to you or pick up in store.
Google Meet is rolling out a new AI-powered feature called Take Notes for Me for Google Workspace customers with the Gemini Enterprise, Gemini and Education Premium, or AI meetings and messaging add-ons. Similar to Meet's transcription tool, but instead of the actual transcripts, it's a summary of what everybody talked about. Then that gets put in a doc. That doc gets attached to the original calendar event once the meeting is over. Google announced this feature last year. Its 2023 Cloud Next conference. Only supports English for now, but it's a start. So Plod, I guess rhymes with Claude. Plod is
plausible.
Makes a voice recorder that uses OpenAI's Whisper to turn your speech into text. Now it's doing something that seems to be a trend, trying out a wearable device that can record things that you say in order to help you get stuff done. Plod's version is called the Note Pin. It's a pill-shaped device you wear on your person somewhere, as a necklace, maybe a pin, a clip, you strap it to your wrist, that type of thing. It has 20 hours of battery life, is only active when you tap it, so it's not listening all the time. It also gives you the choice of using GPT-4o or Claude 3.5 Sonnet to transcribe meetings and provide summaries. In fact, it's very meeting focused is how it's being marketed to users. $169, free to use, although you do have to pay a $79 a year annual fee for more advanced things like summary templates and speaker labeling. First batch going out in September. They keep trying to make AI pins happen, Scott. Are any of these resonating with you?
Well, I don't know. Every time one comes up, I kind of get interested. I hear about just the surface level stuff and I go, all right, maybe this is useful. Like, I know that what these feel like to me are prototype era thing I am going to use in 10 years. But we're just not there. And every time I hear about what the features are, I think, well, that's interesting. And either the features are really interesting and the price is too high, or I'm like, why is this so cheap? Seems like maybe it's not going to be that great. And I've yet to find anything that seems to hit the sweet spot. In the past, we would wait for Google or Apple or some big brand to go, well, these are coming along. We're going to have to get into this business, and now we're doing it. And usually that's what we're waiting for. But I do feel like this is a situation or a kind of product that might come from left field, might come from a small startup. Many of these are. And so I'm as excited as anybody about use cases. Nobody sold me entirely on it yet. It's not the perfect combination of features, price, and promise, I guess, is the word I would use.
I think it's one of those. It's a part of the hardware software market where it's like, are we fixing a problem right now? Because we've even had the conversation on this show of like, well, everything's already in your phone, and some of these devices, for example, Friend that we talked about back in July, that isn't even launching until next January. So, in many ways, you're sort of like, are we even still in vaporware territory type thing? But that is, you communicate with your companion, and then you on your end, but then what you get back does come from your phone. So there are a lot of these relatively expensive devices. None of them seem to be a slam dunk. I was talking to a friend earlier today and I said, what about this one? What do you think? And they said, can't we just put all of this into AirPods? This just seems like something that Apple will solve and hasn't already.
But maybe that's how we get there, right? Like,
yeah,
I feel like we don't know whether this is Echo, the Amazon Echo, which everybody thought was dumb, and then now people use voice assistants all the time, or is it 3D TV, which is like everybody kept trying to make it happen, nobody really wanted it, or is it somewhere in between? And I think the way we find out is to hang it around some people's neck who are willing to try it. And then you might find out, oh, no, it's actually better on your wrist. Or, oh, actually, this could just be in your earpods. But maybe there's a reason why it shouldn't be in your earpods. Maybe there is a good reason why it should be wearable somehow. And we just won't know until we try it out. But I'm with both of you that this is experiment time. And maybe you listening are not the person who wants to experiment with it, but there are people who will, and they'll, eventually figure out whether it's good for something or not.
Yeah, I actually think if there was a way for somebody to say, remember the virtual pet ideas from the 90s with Tamagotchi? What if we made a device that is an AI companion, but we simplify what we think that is? I don't need what feels like me having conversations with another adult. I think that wears really thin really quickly. I think what could be interesting is saying, you got a little alien symbiote in a very small device that's around your neck, and you check in on it, and it's smart enough to know when
maybe
you were
don't
last
always
there.
want to have something stuck in your ears, right?
Right,
but it's still there because it's unobtrusive.
That's how I feel. I mean, I'm wearing my AirPods right now. They don't bother me, but I don't want them in all day.
Yeah.
No, I only want them in at certain times of day. A lot of this companion stuff is designed to be just part of, I don't know, not being nude.
Next time someone says
put
that,
it on at some point throughout the day.
that is part of not being nude. That's what makes it an advance.
Even if the assistant is the only thing you're wearing, you're not nude
You're
anymore.
still not technically nude.
I also think some of these devices are, again, they're a cheaper price point than something like a smartphone. And Limitless, another company that has the Limitless pin, but also has a monthly subscription fee. Again, very much marketed towards people who take a lot of meetings, need a lot of notes, want to keep organized. I think some of these companies might be like, well, we've got all this other stuff anyway. Why not see if we can launch a not that expensive for us loss leader and get a lot of people to use our services?
Pat Ryan says this is the case for smart glasses, even though I don't love the idea of smart glasses. But then people wear contacts for a reason, too. They don't want to always wear glasses. So, I don't know. You don't want impacted earwax. I think a pendant is a less burdensome way of wearing.
Unless you can make my impacted earwax sentient, and now we're talking.
That's from that book Cursed Bunny we read on Sword and
Are
Music.
we talking? I don't think you're going to hear anything at that point. So, yeah. All right, Tom, I'm almost afraid to ask, but I know a lot of things have transpired since our show yesterday. What is the latest with Telegram?
Telegram CEO Pavel Durov was released from police custody Wednesday and taken to court for his first appearance. We're still waiting for more information relating to the charges of complicity and distribution of pornographic images of a minor. Those were made public by a French prosecutor Tuesday. But Politico found some documents indicating an arrest warrant for Durov and his brother and co-founder Nikolai were issued March 25th. Those documents describe an undercover operation to catch a child predator and claim that Telegram gave no response when asked to help identify the suspect based on his use of Telegram. So we decided to get our friend and Parisian Patrick Beja to give us his take on this. Patrick, we know you're not an expert in French law, but you are an expert in being French. How is the news landing there?
Well, I think initially it landed pretty much the same way it did around the world, even in the U.S. There was a lot of confusion and some trepidation or concern about the causes of the arrest. Obviously, even though we might have a lot of, laws and regulations, we're still very much, we understand the importance of cryptography and the idea that this could be related to a demand of the police forces to break cryptography was a concern. And there was the same questions about, well, what about WhatsApp? What about Signal? All of those things. If they do it to Telegram, they can do it to anyone. And then after, I would say, maybe 24 hours, we started understanding a little bit more and maybe cooler heads prevailed. And I think, of course, we don't know. That's the big issue. We don't know exactly what the reason is, although we're getting more and more clues that it might be about, child pornography and the willingness of Telegram to cooperate. And I think that's where the split happens between France or Europe even and the US, because at some point, I think you guys are much more attached to the principle of, freedom, absolute freedom. It's a gradient, but there's more of that. Whereas here, I think there's two things. First, you're supposed to obey the law. If the law says this or that, then you have to do it. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can fight the law, of course, and you can. But in this case, I think it has to do with moderation. And the idea, as we've heard here and there, that Telegram is not moderating, and even more than that, not complying or not even trying to cooperate with official requests, which has nothing to do with cryptography, or at least we hope so. I think that's a red line we don't want to cross even in as French citizens. Like cryptography is very important. But if you don't even answer, like the example we're getting now, child porn, maybe the police forces had needed some information, not even breaking cryptography, and Telegram, because of the ideals of Durov, didn't bother answering. And that's definitely not okay for us. And I think if we talk a little bit more about it, it wouldn't be okay even for you guys in the US to some extent.
Yeah, if this were happening in the U.S., I would note that Telegram is not a member of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children or Internet Watch Foundation, so it does no proactive moderation. But I would also say Well, under Section 230 in the U.S., they get protected on moderation decisions. What would be at stake here would be, did they get a warrant? Did they get a subpoena? Did they get a judge issued you have to identify this person? And did they refuse to comply with that? It gets more complicated because France has different laws. They don't have a Section 230. And this is not a French company. It's an international company. It's headquartered in the United Arab Emirates. So that complicates, well, what exactly are their responsibilities? Telegram, of course, saying we didn't violate any European laws, but that doesn't mean they didn't violate a particular French law.
Well, that's where it gets a little bit murky because you're talking about Section 230. I think we have equivalents. You're not responsible for what people post on your forum. You are, however, responsible when you get a request, a takedown request, you should take it down. But beyond that, there is an issue which is, I believe, and again, I'm not a legal expert, but certainly as a French person, it feels right that you have a duty to moderate. If you have just one-on-one communications, it's one thing, especially if they're encrypted. Then it's a whole different conversation. I don't think there's anything to do with that in this case. But if you have something of a public forum, or even you have a duty to moderate what's on there, and that duty is the same for everyone. And that's where we fall back a little bit on the law is the same for everyone. And Telegram doesn't get special treatment just because Durov is, is he still Russian? I guess he is.
He is a French citizen, which is part of this. He's a United Arab Emirates citizen, and we believe he never renounced his Russian citizenship. Also, apparently, he has a passport for St. Kitts. So, yeah, it gets complicated with that.
That's actually not that relevant because he does business in France. And when you do business in France, then you're subject to French laws in the case of, French, in the French perimeter. And as you pointed out last episode, the issue warrant was for him as a CEO. So it's about the company, not about him personally. It's about what the company does and how it responds to police requests. And I think that even in not the legal minutia, but I believe even if it was in the US, let's say you get some kind of CSAM request to any company from law enforcement, and the company doesn't even respond, because we did get, in the case of Telegram, the transparency report. Sorry, mispronouncing here. And it has nothing in France. Like, we got no requests. We gave up nothing. That seems a little bit weird. Telegram is one of the most used networks in the world. The fact that they would never have collaborated with French law enforcement honestly sounds weird. So it tells me, again, not an expert, I don't have all the details, no one has all the details here. It tells me that they're not very keen on doing anything, especially with the small workforce they have. They're like, yeah, we got this, this, even if it is a court order,
like a subpoena or something.
Yeah, for example, they're like, yeah, we'll get to it eventually and file it in a drawer and never look at it again. And that's the issue. It's not cryptography. It's not the nature of social networks. Like, when you get a letter from the police, you at least look at it and call back. I think
you respond.
Like if you get it down to the core issue, it feels like that's what the problem is here.
Yeah. Although you usually don't get arrested, you might get, a follow-up knock on your door, but usually it is a serious move to actually take him into custody. So, Patrick, thank you so much for sharing the on-the-ground, literally in Paris insight on this. Really appreciate it.
This is French sky right over me. It is actually Parisian sky.
Breathing
Thank
Parisian
you so much
air.
for having me. I love being on the show, and I was very eager to come on when I listened to the show yesterday and what you were talking about. So thanks for having me.
And thank you, Patrick. Appreciate that he was able to take the time. Minutes after we recorded that earlier, the jets from the Paralympics opening ceremony flew over. We just missed being able to see that. It would have been great. But big thanks to Patrick for talking to us about that. We have not yet heard any more about the fate of Pavel Durov as of this recording. So it may have come between us recording this and you listening to it, but we'll talk about it after it happens on the next episode. If you have feedback about anything you hear about on the show and you'd like to get in touch with us on the socials, we are at DTNS Show on X. We're at DTNS Show on Mastodon on the mstdn.social server. We're at Daily Tech News Show on TikTok and at DTNS Pics on Instagram.
On August 18th, James Kuda, who's the CEO of creative app Procreate, posted a video on X that got a lot of attention. Kuda said the company is not going to introduce any generative AI into its products. Kuda added, "Our products are always designed and developed with the idea that a human will be creating something." Now, that's got a lot of attention, and a lot of people said, all right, AI backlash. Who else is going to stand with Procreate to make sure that AI doesn't take our jobs? Scott, what do you make of that?
Well, all right. I'm an unapologetic fan of Procreate. I like their mission, I like their vision, and I've liked their app since day one. And it really has become the de facto tool for a lot of artists and illustrators these days. That is undisputed. And so when they finally sort of addressed this, it was kind of it felt like a little bit of a long time coming thing. You got the impression here and there that they weren't interested in adding a lot of generative tools. It's really important to emphasize that, because they're not saying, and they were explicit about this, they're not saying that there aren't valuable lessons to be learned literally with machine learning and how we can apply those things. But they're not interested in giving you tools that just let you type something in and then the computer draws it for you. They're not interested in that. And I don't think that's such a crazy idea, given that this is a tool, an app that was designed to let me take a writing implement and draw and paint and ink and all of those things. With all the digital advantages that digital art gives us, but it's never been a tool where they said, hey, and if you don't feel like drawing, tell the machine to draw for you, and all servers will put something up there. This is consistent with what they've shown us so far. Now, the reason I think a lot of us, myself included, a lot of artists, a lot of illustrators responded positively to this message was because we don't like generative AI, generally speaking. It's the creative craftsmanship that we should all be focused on in our minds, and we think that AI could be good at doing boring stuff or things behind the scenes or things under the hood that we don't want to have to deal with. But as an artist, you want to output and create and be a craftsman of what you want. And generative AI takes a little bit of that away. And there's other language in his interview about, it takes away the humanity of it. And there, some people are latching on to this stuff and maybe taking some of those statements a little far or whatever, especially if you're pro generative AI. But personally, I think this is a really great thing for them to just at least come out and say, and also just sort of confirm what this app is for. This is app identity in a way. This is program identity.
Yeah.
What do we make? We make tools for artists to draw. What do you not make? We don't make automatic prompt generators. We don't do it. So
the AI pivot is, if the company feels confident in their product, I mean, don't do it.
Well, that's part of it.
There's no pivot to make.
There is a sense that everybody's chasing the rabbit right now. And whether that's Adobe on the larger side of things and lots of little in-betweens, everybody going after this on the generative side. Forget about all the other AI chases that are going on right now. Just that particular part of this market. It would be easy as any small company who's making cool stuff to go, ugh, are we going to get left behind? Or, this is crazy. But if you really think it through, what are you actually asking when you say, what do I want to get left behind? Will this impact our sales negatively? I think the answer is no, because the people who want to draw, who want to illustrate, who want to create, they're coming to you for that reason. They're not going, if you love art, you love creating art, your first thought isn't, well, I better get on that Photoshop because it's going to make half my thing for me, or almost all of it, or all of it if I want to. That's not the way you're thinking as a creative. As somebody out there maybe listening who's like, well, I can't draw for anything. It's stickmen or nothing. So for me, these are really great tools because then I can create things that otherwise I can't execute with my hand. I understand that draw. I get it. But understanding your market, who wants your tools the most, I think Adobe is probably smart to do a bunch of generative AI because this is a big corporate thing. Everybody has it. You buy giant licenses so that your entire company is using it. Like, it makes sense that there are use cases there that supersede the creative. But Procreate is a very personal, very in your lap, very in your hands, very much created by artists who felt like the market needed a piece of software like this. That's their market, and they know their market, and their market doesn't want to type something in and say, make a pretty flower. They want to draw the pretty flower. So I just think this is them saying, we understand who you are, and now we're making the statement because we kind of had to, or, at least there's pressure to, and now you know what we're going to do, and now off we go.
I think this is going to get lost in the translation at some point, and there's going to be a big blow up about it. But he didn't say they would never use AI. He said, we're not going to use these current tools that let you just go make a guy holding a stick in a cloud riding a broom, right? He even went so far as to say, if there are machine learning tools that are ethically trained with artist permission that do a thing we want, we will include those in Procreate. So he's not trying to cut off his nose to spite his face, which is something I wasn't sure of when I first heard about this story. Yeah,
no, that's a really good point to clarify, because they haven't done that. They haven't said no AI forever. And that's my whole point about things under the hood, whatever those may be. I can't really get specific because I don't really understand what's under the hood of a piece of software like that. But there are things that AI could help with that have nothing to do with pre-rendering things for you.
Yeah.
And I think that they would be crazy not to at least leave that window open.
And Procreate will eventually add something like that. It might even be text-based, where you say, expand this scene farther to the right, or something very friendly to artists. And then a bunch of people are going to go, hey, I thought they said no AI. And then there's going to be, well, we never said no AI. And then people are going to get all upset.
Yeah, no matter what, I feel like that will probably happen. But I think in the near future, while this stuff still susses itself out, which it is doing every day, I think that this puts them in a safer place of like, hey, don't worry, our software's still as great and you love it and you're good. Don't worry about us. And then when things start to change, they'll have a little more leeway to maybe explain themselves or whatever.
All right. Well, we give you the leeway to explain yourself at our email address, feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. That's why we have the mailbag. Toby writes, remembering the conversation about recognizing AI pictures between Tom and Shannon on Monday, my attention was drawn to this tweet. And it's a post from a user named Miko, who I believe is a security researcher, who says, always carry an extra finger with you so you can later claim that the photo is a deepfake. And it's a photo of him with someone else, and he clearly has a fake pinky on his hand.
Yeah, it's like a prosthetic.
Yeah.
But is it?
Or is it?
No one knows.
Yeah.
No one knows.
I heard about somebody was saying
that this is very clever.
Somebody was saying something about DEF CON. A whole bunch of people went to DEF CON, last DEF CON, and you could buy these 3D printed
You could buy the fingers.
Yeah, and they were
great.
all, so any pictures you took, you couldn't tell if it was AI or not. It was pretty great.
Yeah. Or you can remove a finger too if you just that's a cheaper way of doing it. Just
that's
get one
true.
out of there.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, hide it. Yeah, don't actually remove it. That could be rather permanent, I think.
Oh, well, thank you, Miko. That gave me a good laugh this morning. And thanks to everybody who emails us, feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Thank you to you, Scott Johnson. What do you have in your cauldron these days?
Well, speaking of like AI, I suppose there's a lot of AI being used in traditional ways in World of Warcraft. I have restarted an old show that people were excited about. We've talked about it on this show before, but I started the Instance over. Instance 2.0, it's happening, and the first episode is already up. We have it designed as a monthly, but we already put out extra content during other times. And right now it's kind of a hot time because it's a brand new expansion. Everybody's excited, and we're playing like crazy. And I think the first episode went really well, and I have a new co-host. His name is Bobby Frankenberger. He knows his stuff. You guys are going to love it. Do check it out. It's over at frogpants.com/instance.
Ooh, it's retro. It's gaming. Patrons, stick around for the extended show if you want more retro and gaming on Good Day Internet. We're going to talk a little more about GameStop Retro. We mentioned it in the quick hits. Is it ensuring its future by revisiting the past?
Just a reminder, you can catch our show live Monday through Friday. That's at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2000 UTC, and you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. Rob Dunwood and I are back tomorrow with more tech news. Back to you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.